tell you that the Supreme Court has dismissed the appeal filed by the governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Uche Naji, and his party challenging the return of Governor Peter Mbah of the People's Democratic Party as winner of that March 2023 governorship election in Enugu State. Justice Tijani Abubakar delivered the judgment and held that the legal team of the APC and Mr. Naji filed a invalid brief of argument and failed to convince the court with cogent reasons as to why the appellant's incompetent brief should be allowed. I mean, the result of that election at that time, the All Progressives Congress candidate, Uche Naji, came forth with 14,575 votes, and that's compared to that of the governor, Mr. Peter Mbah, who had over 160,000 votes. So that's yet another judgment in the string of judgments we've seen concerning elections conducted earlier this year. And tonight on the program, we're going to be taking a look at some of these judgments. These judgments have been quite controversial. Some of them have drawn, flags to the judiciary and the rest. You talk about the one from Delta State, for example, the tribunal ruling one way and the Court of Appeal upturning it, and that's talking about the case of Honorable Ndidi Elumelu, where the appeal court set aside the election tribunal judgment, which declared him the winner. In Enugu State, Labour Party's Sunday Namchi, the tribunal agreed that the candidate was not duly sponsored and qualified to contest the election, so it upturned that. We had a case in Lagos here, the Etiosa case, where Honorable Thaddeus Atau of the Labour Party, his election was upturned, and the tribunal ordered that a rerun be conducted across 32 polling units, and the list goes on and on. But there's a general theme. Some of these judgments have gotten a lot of people talking. So let's get some more insight. What exactly is going on? We're joined by a senior advocate of Nigeria on the program tonight, Mr. Olusegun Afabumi, joins us virtually from the nation's capital. Thank you for joining us on Politics Today, senior advocate.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's been a very busy couple of days, really. And for a lot of Nigerians who are thinking, how do we wrap our heads around some of these judgments coming out? Yes, politicians will do what politicians will do. But as a senior legal practitioner with decades of experience, let me get your thoughts first. Are you concerned by the recent string of judgment by tribunals across the country? Some of them have been very controversial, senior advocate.
Well, I don't know what you mean by being controversial. Parties, submit their grievances to court for adjudication. One party must win, one party must lose. But the problem is, most times, people don't know exactly the facts of the cases. And it's only the lawyers and the parties, or the litigants, that knows the facts. They know what they have sent to court, what they have brought before the court for adjudication. So it is when the judgment is delivered that people will now start hearing the decisions. And you see, when you want to file a case in court, there are so many issues attached to it. And it starts with you having evidence of the case you want to bring before the court. What kind of evidence do you have that you want to bring before the court for the court to agree with you that you have a good case? And then the lawyer that is going to handle the case, is the lawyer actually competent to handle the case? Does he know what is preparing, what is bringing before the court? So these are the issues. When those issues are not properly laid out, you will see people crying foul. But the person that took the case to court knows whether he has a good case. The lawyer filing the case and arguing the case knows whether the party, his own party or client, has a good case. But the problem is the people who are watching outside will definitely not know what the case is all about and the facts of the case. So I'm not, as a lawyer, I'm not really worried, because I can tell you straight away that we have the best judiciary. I don't want to say the word, but at least In Nigeria, we have the best judiciary, and our judges are sound, our judges are good, they know their onions, they are well trained, and the kind of judgment they deliver as a citizen advocate, I'm satisfied with them.
Well, the concern for some of the people who are in court, politicians, some who the judgment didn't go their way, is that they think there's some sort of inconsistency in the application of the laws. And they say some cases that seem to be clearly a party affair or a pre-election matter, and superior courts have ruled on it, and they find it quite curious that the tribunal sat on it and gave what they describe as a contradicting judgment. Have you seen that trend? The Plateau case is a typical case, the one concerning Honorable Dachang Bagos, Benny La, and two other lawmakers. And for them, they say, well, this is clearly not what it ought to have been, you know, looking at other cases. So have you seen any of sorts?
Well, let me tell you straight away. Two cases can never be the same. The facts are definitely different. The way you ventilate your case or your grievance before the court will show whether you are going to win or not. Look, we lawyers, we rely more on precedence. Yes, precedence is a means of guiding you on the decisions of the court, so that if you are going to court, you know that a case of this nature has been decided before, and that is precedence. But at the same time, the facts of the case will definitely not be the same. And in ventilating your grievance before the court, you need to put the facts across the court for the court to be able to agree with you that you have a very good case. So if you have a good case and the facts are not well presented, that is another, and that's where people will come to say, look, there's technicality. No, it's not the issue of technicality. It's like, let me give you a scenario. It's like a doctor who is not well trained or who has not performed an operation before, trying to perform an operation on a patient. What do you think will be the outcome? The patient will definitely die. So most often than not, the beginning of a case starts with the evidence that you have. You can say, yes, you have a good case, but the people watching will say, yes, okay, we agree with it. And let me tell you, the problem we have now with our society is the social media. Most of decisions are already made at the social media level. So that whatever the judges or the court are saying, people have a setting in their mind that this is the way the judgment should go. So most often than not, there's nothing you want to tell them that they will agree with you. They will tell you that no, the judges have compromised, the judges have not done the right thing.
Right.
But the person that has taken the case to court knows what he or she has taken to court. He knows the evidence he has brought before the court. The position of the law simply is that he who asserts must prove.
So, senior advocate, pardon me. So I'd like us to break it down case by case, if we can.
Yes.
And I'll refer to the one of Delta State, Honorable Ndudi Olumelu of the People's Democratic Party for Aniocha Oshimili federal constituency. And we're looking at the merits of the case, social media sides. This is what played out in court. And, you know, the appeal court in this case set aside the judgment of the election tribunal, which declared him winner. Recall that during the election he had lost, but the tribunal declared him winner. And now the appeal court upturned the judgment of the tribunal. And for a lot of people watching, they wonder, why is there a discrepancy? Yes, that's why you have higher courts to perhaps look at those matters again. But when they see these things, this judgment from tribunal, don't they have a right to question it and say, well, this does not seem consistent, as we have now seen the appeal court upturning the judgment of the tribunal in this case?
Well, those ones will definitely come once in a while. The reason being that if a lower court or a tribunal has not given the right judgment, that is why the party aggrieved by that decision has the right to appeal to the higher court. You see, most often than not, we are all human beings. It is not because you want to compromise or you have done one thing wrong or the other. But as a human being, that is why you have the levels of court. You have the High Court, you have the Court of Appeal, and you have the Supreme Court. I can tell you straight away that the Supreme Court, in some judgments, have even said that they are infallible and that sometimes they do make mistakes as human beings. That is a court of 5 justices in a normal case, and where you have a constitutional matter, 7 justices that will sit. So, and the Supreme Court will even tell you that whatever they decide, it is now left for God to decide the judgment. So what I'm saying in effect is that Elumelu lost at the election. The tribunal restored him and said he won. The beauty of it is that they have now taken it to the Court of Appeal. So we now await definitely what the Supreme Court is going to say. But what I'm saying is this, that most of the judgments sometimes are not the way we look at it. It might be, look, even as a human being, we make errors. And judges are human beings. And naturally, sometimes they do make errors. And that is why there's room for people to appeal to higher courts. So the issue of inconsistency is not the issue. The issue is that at the end of the day, when you read the judgment, those who are practitioners, legal practitioners, they will know that it is not because that judge or the tribunal actually wanted to favor that party, but it was an error of law. And when you are appealing because you want the higher court to overturn that decision.
Just to be clear, for the levels of appeal when it comes to various elections, for the National Assembly and State Assembly Tribunal, after the tribunal is the Court of Appeal, and that's the final, isn't it? Is there another level above a Court of Appeal for the National Assembly and State Assembly?
No.
So this is final for that case, the Court of Appeal?
Yes.
Okay, just to clarify. So I'd like us to take a look at another case. So that is an example. But then what has been said again, and before we look at the case of Plateau, I just wanted to bring this in. One of those concerned had said that a lawmaker, in fact, and it's quite interesting that this is a case that involves lawmakers and then the courts that are meant to interpret the law. And for the lawmaker, he said, and that's Honorable Bagos, who was a guest on the program yesterday, well, he said that was not the intendment of the Electoral Act, which of course, he was a part of that whole process of making the law. And he says he believes that the Chief Justice of Nigeria should have done some sort of meeting with the judges before the tribunal, such that they can go over the laws and try to be consistent. Is that something, I know that there was some sort of meeting, but is that something that is plausible, maybe?
No, it's not. It's not. You see, judges, the way they are appointed, are independent. A judge, look, if a judge, let me put it this way, if the justice of the CJN calls a judge, maybe at the lower level, at the lower bench, at the High Court, or even at the Court of Appeal, it will be termed to mean another thing entirely. It will be as if the CJN is trying to influence the decision that is going to come out. So you don't interfere, because when the case goes to the High Court, it is still going to be appealed to the Court of Appeal. So if it's going to go to the Supreme Court, is it this person that is going to determine that the Supreme Court that will not tell you what to do at the lower court? So it's not possible. So it's not allowed, and we don't do it. So in the hierarchy, all levels of court have independence. They have the right to take their own decision. So you cannot, the only thing they do is that they go to seminars, they go to workshops for them to look at decisions that has taken place by way of a precedence, so that at least most times they don't depart from those decisions. But like I told you earlier, most cases, all cases can never be the same in terms of facts. And
Right.
once the facts of the case is different, then you see that sometimes there might be slight changes. And then sometimes again, there's what we call novel cases. There are some principles that might just come up for the first time that has never happened before. And once it comes up for the first time, a decision has to be taken by that panel, by that judge, or by the Court of Appeal, or by the Supreme Court. So, and
Right.
it's not going to be that they have to go and look at a decision where there's no precedent. So they still have to use their minds and their own decision to come and arrive at a decision.
So let's take a look at some other peculiar cases. As you said, cases are different. So we brought some cases to take a look at them, if we could say case by case, some sort of review. And this one is for Plateau and Imo State. But let's take a look at Plateau first. Now, the major reason that was given in that judgment, which upturned the election of 4 lawmakers of the People's Democratic Party, is that the PDP candidates were invalidly nominated due to what the court called no party structure. And listening to some of the respondents, they said, well, first, it's an internal party affair, a pre-election issue. And they had said that, well, they carried out the congresses as they were meant to, and they wonder how this will now affect the election, which a lot of them said they won by a very wide margin. So how should the court handle issues like that? Pre-election issues, party affairs, and the court always says, I mean, why are you, an outsider, coming to meddle in the affairs of a particular family, in this case a party? So do you see that discrepancy in this case as well?
Well, what I would say straight away is, if you are talking of election matters are to be handled by the Federal High Court at the pre-election matter stage. And if you jump that step and you now want to take it up at the other step, maybe at the tribunal will not allow you to dwell into that. And so if the people who are supposed to take up their matter at the Federal High Court were unable to, so if you look at so many of the decisions in the Presidential Tribunal judgment, most of them were according to although it's still sub judice because there's an appeal at the Supreme Court now. They said those judgments, those issues were pre-election matters in which decisions have already been taken. So if decisions have already been taken or were not taken, then you cannot raise it at that level. But the courts up to Supreme Court have stated that where issues are pre-election matter, it cannot be brought to the tribunal, and the only thing you can do is after you have lost on the pre-election matter, you can still appeal. Right. But if you didn't go on pre-election matter, then you don't have the right to come and complain at the tribunal.
So I want to know, do you see some of these, we've seen the one in Delta State, do you see some of these recent judgments by the tribunals now being upturned when it gets to the appeal level? Because one of them is this case of Kenga Ugochinyere, and this is not asking specifically about this one, but this one concerns the fact that the tribunal held that he was not validly nominated by the PDP. Again, another pre-election matter. There's one from Delta Central Senatorial District as well, where it concerns the APC. But looking at all of these cases, I just wanted to get your personal view. Do you see some of these judgments being upturned when they get to the higher courts?
It's possible. It's possible. Because, you see, where there are mistakes on this judgment, that is why you have the appeal court. Most of the decision, you see, like I told you, we are all human beings and we make mistakes. And once those mistakes and errors are made in law, the duty of the higher court is to set aside those decisions. But the issue here is the way and manner, I still continue to say it every day, the way and manner you ventilate your grievances before the court. Because most people who are watching and looking on the sideline don't know what you have presented. They read maybe even 1/10 of the facts, and they twist the facts in the social media. So it is when the judgment now comes out, and where you are reading the judgment and you are not the one that have presented the case before the court, you may not really understand what is going on. And you know, law itself, as it were, is technical, whether you like it or not. Because when you start quoting the law, you start quoting the sections, an ordinary man or an ordinary person may not really understand and may not even want to understand. All he wants is justice. But I
Let
can
me
tell you
ask you.
that, yes.
You can land on that point, senior advocate. You can land on that.
But I want to tell you that justice is always served to the parties who have done the right thing before the court. That's what I wanted to say.
And my final question is one that touches home. It concerns the conduct of lawyers. In the Delta case, the court, in fact, in the judgment, it had to be said categorically that the court was not happy. In fact, the court frowned at the conduct of INEC's lawyer in this case. And what the court said was that during the tribunal, it looked like the INEC lawyer argued in favor of the Labour Party. And during the appeal, the INEC lawyer argued in favor of the People's Democratic Party and its candidate. And the court was particular about that. So in terms of, I mean, perhaps finding out where the problems are, is the legal profession also owning its own? The politicians, yes, own their own. The courts as well, you said the court makes mistakes. That's natural, we're humans. But what about the lawyers themselves?
Well, what I can tell you straight away is if a lawyer has not done the right thing before the court, there's the Legal Practitioner Treatment Committee. I can tell you that not all of us are doing the right thing, whether we like it or not. Let's admit. And that is why even now, you see petitions being written against lawyers for punishment. But a lawyer who knows his onions will always be consistent every time. You cannot blow hot in a particular case and also say another blow cold in the same case. If it is another case with different facts, good. But in the same case, you cannot argue at the tribunal on the side of a party as an lawyer and at the same time go to the Court of Appeal and argue on the other side of PDP. I think I don't think it's right. It's not right as far as I'm concerned. And if it is looked into properly, because what the courts have been doing now, if you look at it, if you lose a case and the courts, especially the higher court, Court of Appeal, you can see what happened at the Presidential Tribunal. They award punitive costs. The Supreme Court has been doing it for over 5 years now. If you take a case that you are not supposed to take there, for the purpose of just collecting money from your client, they put punitive cost on you. And you are going to pay it personally, not your client. And you know, when the client has lost a case, and you are now being asked to pay costs, how will you go as well? So most times, when people come to me and bring cases, I will say an incident of a case that someone asked me to come and handle election petition in Supreme Court. Somebody brought it to me. I said, no. I looked at it, I said, I can't handle it. The person lost the pre-election matter, lost at the Federal High Court, lost at the Court of Appeal, and now appealed to the Supreme Court. And the time was totally out. I said, what do you want us to go and do there? And the person funnily asked me, don't you want money? I said, I don't want money. Because the reputation and integrity is more important than the money. So some of us definitely don't look at the integrity. They don't look at the reputation. They are greedy and they look at the money alone. But at the end of the day, the reputation will speak.
It is cheery to hear such, and we do hope that others can take a leaf from that. But we'd like to thank you so much for your thoughts on some of these cases. It's been very interesting speaking to you on this. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Olusegun Fabumi. Thank you once again.
I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful.